It's Matt Marchese, also known as Islanders Daily, your daily news from the four-time Stanley Cup champions, New York Islanders. And today was a slow day around the Islanders as we are getting ready for the regular season of the NHL. The Islanders do have one preseason game left. But before we go into that, the Islanders have made their backup goaltender decision, and it is David Rittich. As Hogberg was sent down to the minors just today, and I know some people are kind of upset about it and disappointed, but this was the most likely option that was going to occur when the Islanders did sign David Rittich in free agency. I thought it was essentially a lock that David Rittich would be the backup goaltender, but he did struggle in preseason. I can say it. I mean, in that first game, he made a couple good saves, struggled, and then yesterday, of course, really struggled against the New York Rangers AHL team, and he admitted to not being able to read the puck well at all. Hopefully, it's just, a little bit of a playoff or preseason worrisome here. But right now, it's, for better or worse, David Rittich will be the backup goaltender for what I'm assuming is going to be essentially the whole year, as we still have no idea what is going on with Semyon Varlamov. And I can't tell anybody what's going on with Varlamov because I honestly don't know. It's something about his knee. I don't know if it's his age and everything. But yeah, Varlamov just seems like an unlikely option. So for better or worse, it will be David Rittich for the whole season as a backup goaltender. But I'm hoping David Rittich is able to straighten out his game and improve, because you cannot rely on Ilya Sorokin playing 60 to 65 games again this season. It's just unrealistic. And by that time, most goalies do get worn down. And then if you somehow make the playoffs, your starting goaltender is so worn down. I mean, look at Connor Hellebuck on the Jets. Really struggled in the playoffs last season, and I truly believe that's because he was just simply worn down from playing so much in the regular season. And the playoffs are a completely different game than regular season hockey, with the aggressiveness, the heart, the pressure all around. It's a different game, and it's not going to be easy like it isn't. I shouldn't say easy, but when you look at the regular season hockey, it's a lot more lax. But when you look at the playoffs, everybody's going, as hard as they can 24/7 when that game is on. So just playing 65 games wears down a goalie, and it's really impressive if they're able to keep that up into the postseason. So I'm hoping David Rittich plays solid enough to where it's not that big of a deal and it does not hurt the Islanders, and it gives Sorokin breathing room so he doesn't have to be the goalie to go out there every single night and carry the Islanders. And while the season winds down, he's worn out. So hopefully Rittich is able to straighten up his game, because like I said, for better or worse, Rittich will be the backup goaltender for this whole season, as I think Hogberg maybe gets an opportunity later in the season, but Varlamov just seems like a lost cause at this point, and I don't think any Islander fan should believe that we will see Varlamov play again. Now, hopefully I eat my words, but, it's someone of Varlamov's age and how long he's been out, it's going to be tough for him to come back and play. So we'll just have to wait and see. And then going from there, Anders Lee will be playing in the preseason game tomorrow. He was dealing with that upper body injury. And like I said, in that game he played earlier in the preseason, he looked really, really bad. And I don't know if it's his age catching up to him as well, but Anders Lee should be better than that. And he should especially be better than that, as he will be playing on first line or second line minutes. And Anders Lee is a guy who the Islanders need to play to be a good team. They just need a solid Anders Lee, and he did not look like the solid Anders Lee in that first preseason game. Now, he is coming back from injury. Hopefully it was something that was nagging him in that game, and he was kind of playing through it. That's what I'm hoping for, and hopefully we'll see Anders Lee, play just a more Anders Lee branded game of hockey. Someone who, is hard on the forecheck, somebody who gets into the dirty areas and does stuff, because that's not what we've seen with Anders Lee. He was looking kind of scared. He just wasn't looking nearly as good. And for someone like Anders Lee, it's kind of disheartening. I really like Anders Lee. I think he's been a great leader for the Islanders, and for the Islanders to be good, we need Anders Lee to be good. And I know there was some discussions going on. I saw on Twitter, I don't know how reliable the account was, that Anders Lee could be a trade deadline target, but I feel like that is the case for every guy on expiring deals on the Islanders if they're not in the playoff picture. So yeah, we're just going to have to wait and see, and hopefully Anders Lee looks like a better player in this final preseason game right before the regular season. And then that made me start thinking about the playoffs and everything. And do the Islanders have a true chance at the playoffs this season, and it's really, really tough for me to say. As a fan, obviously I want to be biased and say, of course, we have a chance of playoffs, and I will say we have a chance of playoffs. I think almost every team in the NHL will always have a chance in the playoffs, minus a few who clearly just aren't ready for the playoffs or have a team that's set for the playoffs, building for the future. Teams like the Sharks and Blackhawks and stuff like that. But for the Islanders, this roster, if you look at it on paper, they don't look like a bottom feeder team. They really don't. They look like a team who will be in the middle and can potentially fight for the playoffs. Now, I don't know if it is possible, right? It's so difficult to look in the big picture because when everybody predicted the Islanders to finish last place, they made the playoffs when Tavares left. So picking these teams is truly a difficult thing. But obviously, the Islanders won't be coming in, the first three positions of the Metropolitan Division. I really think that's set in stone for the Carolina Hurricanes, the New Jersey Devils, and I'm going to assume the Washington Capitals once more if everything falls back into picture for them. And then you look at other teams. The Rangers are a solid team who are there, who had a really bad year last year, but they're better than what their record shows. And it just kind of becomes a little difficult. I mean, I think the Penguins and Flyers really don't have a chance at the playoffs whatsoever. And yeah, so it really comes down is, are we able to get that fourth or fifth seed in the Metropolitan and get into the wild card? Because if you look at the Atlantic, they still have solid teams. I know the Canadians are getting better. There's so many good teams in hockey that it's really difficult to say if the Islanders will make the playoffs. But they will not be a top three team in the Metropolitan Division, of course not. But if the puzzle pieces fit, the Islanders will be a playoff team. But the main key for these puzzle pieces fitting is our special teams. They were ranked 31st in both the power play and the penalty kill last year, and you need at least an average unit to get you to the playoffs, an average. And the Islanders had an abysmal unit. So improving the special teams is the key to the playoffs. And, of course, staying healthy, having our players play to their potential. Someone like a Drouin, Horvat, Anders Lee, Barzal. We need these guys to show up game in and game out and perform if we want any chance to make the playoffs. So I'm going to be neutral. I don't want to be biased. I don't want to jinx anything or anything like that. So I will say the Islanders probably do not make the playoffs this season, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start offloading those contracts of the older guys in the trade deadline, such as a Pajot, Cizikas, Anders Lee. And the only way I see any player staying from that is Anders Lee if he really wants to stay on the Islanders and take a super team-friendly deal with them. But besides that, I don't know. It's hard to see with the Islanders. We're going to have to see how they look like once regular season hockey starts. We play the Penguins in the first game of the year, and I think that's a good opening game. Somebody who's not projected to be too good this season. How do we compare to a team who's not, supposed to be too good? Now, obviously, analytics and, reporters and stuff probably are picking the Islanders not to be too good as well. But it's on the Islanders to prove people wrong like they've done in years past with a new general manager at the helm. And finally, just an update in the NHL is the Minnesota Wild did re-sign Kirill Kaprizov to an 8 years, $17 million contract. That is record-breaking as Kirill Kaprizov now becomes the highest-paid player in the NHL's history. And obviously, with the cap growing and everything, it makes sense. But Kaprizov definitely isn't the best player in the NHL. And obviously, it's hard to say if he deserves that money because if you look at other sports, the football, basketball, baseball. I mean, baseball, you have kind of mid-tier players making $17 million a year, whereas Kirill Kaprizov is a superstar player, and $17 million a year is record-breaking in the NHL. And it's just funny to think about that. You see these other sports where they have, average players making $17 million like it's nothing. So good for Kirill Kaprizov. I know there was rumors that he requested out of Minnesota. He declined that first deal. None of it happens. He ends up staying with the Wild for an 8 years and will probably be there for the rest of his career, which is kind of upsetting. I was hoping by some miracle, anything miracle, that he would somehow end up on the Islanders. Obviously, that's a pipe dream or was a pipe dream, and I knew that was never going to happen. But you can believe, you can hope, and yeah, so Kaprizov now becomes the highest paid player in NHL history, and this really makes me curious on what Connor McDavid is going to receive on when his contract extension happens, or if he decides to test free agency, which I feel like is definitely a possibility that Connor McDavid will test out free agency. So, yeah, just keep an eye out for those contracts because the cap is rising and we're going to be seeing more players signing bigger contracts, maybe shorter term also, as we wait for the cap to rise to earn those bigger contracts. But yeah, besides that, that's really all I have today for the Islanders as well as updates around the NHL. If you guys have any comments and anything that you want me to talk about in future videos, feel free to leave them below. And as always, let's go Islanders.